One of the 16 Myers-Briggs personality types, the INFJ, makes me feel like an unbalanced fusion of opposites at times. I have an equal tendency toward reason and emotion, yet neither side of me is firmly rooted. As an INFJ who is a living, breathing example of one, I can promise you that we feel contradictory as well. INFJs are frequently perceived as having conflicting features. Here are 4 characteristics that could make the INFJ one of the more mysterious personality types. Interesting qualities of the INFJ personality. 1. We are always in a bittersweet mood. If my life had a soundtrack, it would be a somber, contemplative piece of classical music, perhaps from The Crown. When I'm traveling, coasting down deserted streets and darting past abandoned homes, I frequently listen to this type of music. This background music fits the scene perfectly. I'm not depressed when I hear music like this. Instead, it encourages me to act with greater profundity and purpose. Things now carry more weight, yet it is a solid sense of meaning rather than an unpleasant, onerous weight. Sometimes when I'm driving home, I'll be deep in concentration, my eyes wide, and my face grave, all in rhythm with the dismal, tensely pounding of piano keys against a soft orchestra. And I'll consider everything has a purpose. I start blinking wetly, my nose starts to burn, and my eyes start to glaze over with tears. Being an INFJ means that everything will always have a poignant undertone. We observe how things can be tragically tragic while also being achingly lovely. I frequently experience the feeling of devastation on the other side of beauty, decay on the other side of growth, and death on the other side of life. INFJs are fully aware of the gravity of life. We intimately sense the contrast between pleasure and suffering in life. 2. We explain away other people's actions. We INFJs are preoccupied with human motivations and psychology, and we have a talent for comprehending everyone's viewpoints. This does not imply that we have second thoughts about our beliefs. A person's opinion need not be shared by us in order to comprehend how they came to it and the procedures they used to arrive at it. This explains why the phrase "I just don't understand," which is typically used in disbelief by others, has always upset me a little. Then, with a tinge of anxiety, I realize I can explain away other people's actions to the extent that I can come up with plausible explanations. Why do people, for instance, lash out when they are furiously angry? I don't think this reads as a mystery. It has more to do with the person's general story than the specific circumstance at hand. With some thought on my part, it can soon become understandable. I relate it to a psychological need or an emotional drive of theirs. In this regard, INFJs have a surprisingly cerebral capacity for empathy. Instead of viewing things in a confined, situational light, we have a tendency to connect the dots and take a broad perspective that takes into consideration people's life experiences, individual impulses, family lives, etc. Instead of focusing only on what is obvious and upfront, we make use of all this information to get a more thorough picture of their behavior. 3. We can choose to separate from our feelings. INFJs are frequently misconstrued as being these delicate, spiritual beings. Simply said, this is untrue. Yes, we are highly sensitive and passionate individuals, but most of the time, we are also incredibly private. My hypothesis is that our insistence on privacy helps us control the irrational parts of our emotions. This is so because INFJs crave order and privacy as a type of restriction. As an INFJ, I frequently experience conflict between my sensitivity and my reason. I also frequently have this oddly intelligent capacity to decide which course to take. This implies that I might not cry or feel upset at all when I come across something that ought to be heartbreaking, like a movie with an especially moving plot. I'm instead deep in some sort of analysis. The INFJ's ability to swallow the deep, terrible truths about humanity that most people don't want to look at may be explained by this conscious turning on and off. For me, being as sensitive as I am, this conscious separation from my emotions functions as a defense mechanism. Operating constantly from my emotions would sometimes be too much for me to handle. For we're not really as calm as we seem. How many times I've been accused of being enviously laid back is beyond me. You have no clue what the interior of my skull is like every single day, I would thought as I laughed delightfully. The reality is that my internal environment and how other people perceive me are completely different from one another. INFJs often try to hide their ferocity, but after spending enough time with us, you'll undoubtedly see it slipping through the cracks. Similar to this, people often comment on my calm attitude despite the fact that, on any given day, my thoughts are more like a stormy sea than a placid pond. INFJs experience intense mental pain and are continually plagued by varied levels of existential dread. It's possible that we are experiencing a quiet panic while the others around us are unaware of it. Again, this may be related to the INFJ's profusion of ideas or our preference for structure. Maybe it's merely a strategy to lessen the risk of becoming completely overwhelmed. Consequently, we can pretend to be more polished than we truly are. INFJs get to be the chameleons that walk the line between the right and left brains, emotion and analysis, chaos and order, being the unusual breed that we are. We can hide a lot with the skin we present to the outside world. These 4 characteristics of ours are not always apparent, but I hope that this has at least somewhat shed some light on the mysterious INFJ.